Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. So, I was in the middle of a couple of different projects and I've had to put them on hold because I think this is a very, very important video to make. And to be honest, I'm really fucking pissed off right now. And there's someone I just want to publicly condemn, and I want this on the record. I don't want there to be any misinterpretation about this, that this guy is a piece of shit. He is a massive fucking scumbag, and I want it on the record that I don't want anything to do with him whatsoever. And all of you should agree with me and publicly state it. We all should distance ourselves from this piece of shit and let it be known we don't want anything to do with him or agree with him in any way. Now, you may think those words are a bit strong, but wait until you get into this shit. I'm pretty sure you'll all agree with me. And if you don't, please unsub and fuck off. And I know that sounds harsh, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. So what I'm talking about is the guy behind an anti-feminist blog called The Daily Anti-Feminist. It labels itself the world's most taboo breaking anti-feminist blog. You'll see why it's taboo in a minute. So let's have a look at the About page. The Daily Anti-Feminist is a blog dedicated to the legalization of rape, pedophilia, and child prostitution. We'll go through an article in a minute to see exactly what this guy's about, but you know, this should be enough to tell you why I'm pissed off at the moment and why this guy's a piece of shit. And I'm guessing at this point, most of you, hopefully all of you, are as angry as I am. Now, there's two possibilities here. The first one is that this is a setup, what conspiracy theorists would call a false flag operation, and this has all been set up by someone to discredit us. It wouldn't surprise me. The blog's only 2 weeks old. I would say that's a very real possibility. Of course, the other possibility is that he's just a complete fucking nutjob. And unfortunately, people like this do exist. There's a part of my brain that doesn't want to accept that anyone would go around saying that rape should be legalized, that pedophilia is okay, and there should be child prostitution. There's a part of my brain that just doesn't want to accept that, even though I know it's true. It's like the whole Amos thing that erupts every 6 months or whatever. Every time I see a video by Amos talking about children being able to consent to sex or whatever, there's a part of my brain that says he has to be trolling. He can't actually believe that. How can someone actually think that? But unfortunately, there are some people out there who do. And, you know, to be honest, they can go fuck themselves. And the thing is, I like to put myself in the shoes of my opposition and try to understand where they're coming from. Even someone like Steve Shives, who I disagree with on most things, and I think he's a terrible fucking person, I can still put myself in his shoes and understand his motivations and why he thinks certain things. I'm not saying 100%, but I can get a pretty good idea of why he's thinking something or where he's coming from. Someone like this, I can't though. I've no way of putting myself in their shoes, and to be honest, I don't fucking want to. If this guy is serious, the only thing I can think of is that he may have been abused himself as a child, and maybe this is a reaction to it. I don't know. To be honest, I have no fucking idea. So let's have a look at one of his articles. It's a recent article. And before we even get into it, let me just say, once again, this guy has no affiliation with myself, and every single MRA and anti-feminist out there should distance ourselves from this guy as quickly as possible. We should let it be known that not only are we not connected to this guy, but we condemn every fucking thing he believes. He's a lunatic or a troll. Either way, fuck him. We don't want him anywhere near us. So anyway, let's look at this article.
Now that Evian Birds declared me as the leader of the men's movement, I will take my blog even more seriously.
Now, in case you're curious who Evenberg is, he's a guy on Twitter who calls himself an MRA. I think he's been a men's rights activist longer than I have. And he's right off on the fringe where no one takes him serious, except takedown MRAs. He loves to quote him as a typical MRA. But actual MRAs don't want anything to do with this guy because he thinks that, you should be able to have sex with kids or something. I don't know. He's another lunatic. I don't think Even is a troll. I think he's the real deal. He also believes bullshit like apparently men can't be raped by women, and so, a 40-year-old female teacher sleeping with a 12-year-old schoolboy, apparently that's not rape in his mind. Yet he somehow calls himself an MRA. I don't get it. He can fuck off too, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, let's continue.
Evenberg has always been a hero to me, and together with Holocaust 21 and the Anti-Feminist, basically inspired me to start the blog. And I have been commenting on his blog now and then. It's an excellent blog, by the way, and if you go through it, you'll see that Even has been a consistent thinker throughout the years. He doesn't come up with bullshit on the spot, he has a coherent worldview. Now, in his latest post, I have been crowned the leader of men's movement.
The leader of the men's movement? Well, you can fuck off as far as I'm concerned. What we have here is one fringe lunatic who no one really takes seriously, crowning another fringe lunatic, the head of the men's movement. So they can go off and have their own little movement by themselves and talk about kiddie porn and hopefully get arrested and put in jail. But I don't want anything to do with them whatsoever. Next.
My response to that is that, while I have only been doing this thing for merely 2 weeks, I have no problem being the official leader.
And it's statements like this which make me think that this might be a troll or, once again, like the conspiracy theorists say, a false flag operation. So now this will be quoted in articles endlessly that this guy is the official leader of the men's rights movement, even though the vast majority of MRAs have never heard of him, and any who have would not agree with him. But, as we've seen, the media doesn't really care about facts. Of course, the other explanation is he's just a fucking nut job. Let's continue.
The reason for my outrageous lack of humility in this case is that I have an important message to make, and I believe that I am correct about the basic ideas of what this fight is all about, so the more people read my stuff and give thought to my ideas, the more likely I am to advance the goals of this movement. And that should be the purpose of all of this, advancing the goals of the pro-male sexuality movement, aka the men's movement, aka the alt-manosphere.
The pro-male sexuality movement. Well, I think there does need to be a pro-male sexuality movement, considering male sexuality is constantly condemned, but that does not mean legalizing rape or pedophilia or fucking child prostitution, for fuck's sake. That's going to have the opposite effect. Once again, this makes me think that maybe this guy is not legitimate. But it's just too hard to tell. I mean, he could just be a fucking nutter. Next.
Also, we're in such a crappy situation with all the raging Blue Knightism going on, that you may as well give me a chance because we don't have anything to lose, anyway.
So, in case you're wondering what a Blue Knight is, here's a description from a different article.
Like his white knight counterpart, the Blue Knight, as in blue balls, is any man on the internet and beyond the internet whose excessive, overreactive protective instinct is commanding him to set out to defend children from sexualization or exploitation, blah 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 voodoo mumbo jumbo.
Okay, let's continue with the original article.
Although I kinda expected that, if I keep this thing going for long enough, I would become a prominent figure.
Really? You thought that advocating the legalization of rape and child prostitution would make you a prominent figure? Really? I've got news for you, mate. I really do. Next.
I never imagined that this would happen in such a way. Holy shit lol, but now that it happened, I'm going to put even more effort into writing the stuff that I write, because I want this project to succeed, not fail. Because the situation is serious. Jokes and trolling aside, the force that I identified as Puritanism feminism has lately exceeded even its own most kooky insanity with regards to the criminalization of male sexuality. As Holocaust 21 recently reported, Denmark, of all countries, is charging 1,000 young people for the voodoo crime known as child porn possession. It is called a voodoo crime for the following reason. The people who defend the criminalization of CP often argue that every time you watch the video file or look at the sinister pixels on the screen, the child victim is victimized all anew. No, really, that's the actual argument being made by these people, that by clicking on a link in a browser, a teenager who had sex on camera is victimized again by the sex that already happened. That way, these people essentially accuse CP viewers of being child molesters, aka chomos. Well, if I'm a chomo for watching the CP, so be it. I won't disabuse the superstitious of their utterly maniacal notions. The saddest thing is that there is almost nobody out there saying, I support the legalization of child porn.
No, actually, that's a very, very good thing. Next.
Virtually nobody voices that position, and I have no way of knowing how many people hold this position without voicing it. Presumably, all the people who watched it where I watched it supported its legalization. That'd be a lot of people. But for all the people who watch it, I rarely hear the issue of its legalization discussed anywhere. It makes sense, since people don't want to admit to watching it, because then it's weird, because saying, it should be legal, is not actually an admission to watching it. The issue is not confined to CP, obviously. Look into the various, alternative media, websites, and they almost all fall into the child sex ring, child sex trafficking, and human trafficking hoaxes.
Oh, so those things are hoaxes? Really? Human trafficking, child sex rings are all hoaxes. Okay, next.
These hoaxes are used by the governments of the world, and primarily USG, to tyrannize the citizens and deprive them of their rights and liberties. We are standing against a global, totalitarian force, that is determined to use whatever pretext, or no pretext, to incarcerate us and agitate for hysteria against us.
There's a part of my brain that just keeps saying this guy can't be real. And I don't know if it's my bullshit detector going off or whether I just don't want to admit that someone like this can be real. I just don't know. Next.
All the things that used to be normal in human history have been rendered taboos by Puritanism feminism. You can't have sex with your girlfriend because of X, can't have sex with your wife because of Y, you can't have sex with a random woman you meet at a bar because of Z.
Yeah, and I agree, there is a demonization of male sexuality. That doesn't mean that we should be legalizing pedophilia or fucking child prostitution or rape. For fuck's sake. Next.
The intelligence agencies are looking at your browsing history and analyzing it so they could use it against you, if and when, and the sick ideology of victimology is shoved down your throat by the media, including so-called alternative media, and the brainwashing entertainment industries non-stop. So, I'm just a guy with a blog, but if you want me to do whatever I can do to resist this state of affairs, I'll try to do it. And if you want me to do it under the title of official leader of the men's movement, okay.
Once again, let me be clear. You can go fuck yourself. That simple. So, this guy was brought to my attention 2 weeks ago on Twitter by some fellow MRAs, and I was so pissed off, I actually recorded the audio that you've just seen in the video that night, with the intention of getting that video up as soon as possible. Now, that was 2 weeks ago, and you may be wondering why it took me so long to get this video up. Well, the reason why is I woke up the next morning and had second thoughts, because I thought, if I publish this video, am I actually just giving this guy free publicity? Am I essentially handing this guy over to our opposition, some of which will then use it against us as an example of a typical MRA, which obviously he's not. But you know what our opposition is like. Some of them don't have any morals whatsoever and will lie and distort reality in any possible way they can. And I didn't want to be responsible for giving them ammunition to use against us. So I thought it might be best just not to mention this guy at all, with the hope that he would just disappear into obscurity. But unfortunately that hasn't happened. In those 2 weeks, Takedown MRAs has come across this guy and is now using him as an example of a typical MRA, and unfortunately his followers are so moronic that they just eat it up without any question. They're more than happy to think of this guy as a typical MRA or representative of all MRAs. Of course, they never apply the same standard to themselves. When you point out bad feminists to them, they automatically say, well, they don't represent all feminists. That's just a fringe group. That's just a lunatic. No one takes that person serious. You can't use that person to represent all of us, even if it's the largest feminist organisation in the world, like Now. Yet they're more than happy to apply completely different standards to us and to find any fringe lunatic and claim that this fringe lunatic represents all MRAs everywhere. Even if this fringe lunatic is quite possibly a troll. I mean, just have a look at some of the titles of some of the articles he's written in the 2 weeks since I recorded that audio. Wonderful titles like "My Dream Job is Child Pornographer," or "Blue Knights should anally rape Seth MacFarlane on live television to prove a point." Or this wonderful title, "Let me tell you about a child porn video I pleasantly jerked off to." Yes, yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping this guy is just a Poe or a false flag, but who the fuck knows?